Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me while I work today. Today I'm going to be working on the first round of inking for Age of Night, chapter 23, page 24. This is the one I was working on drawing last week. As you can see, I have finished drawing it, and I have gotten all of the lettering done, which didn't take very long because there's not a lot of dialogue on this page. But that is done. And now I'm going to start inking. So, first thing I like to do is I'm fiddling over here with my stuff, is I'm going to start with some of these lines that are going to require a straight edge or other tools to get accurately. So we're going to start with the straight edge for some of these pavers on the ground here. Edge of the building. And I can see that they're a little bit wonky. My drawing was a little bit wonky in some spots, so I'm going to try to correct that a little bit as I go too. And I try to do all of the same direction of these straight lines so that I can just move my tool across the panel without accidentally dragging it around through any of my wet ink and causing problems. And I've got another one of those lines over here. I'll go ahead and put another one in because there are pavers over there, even if you're not really going to see many of them. Nothing in this one. It's just a close-up. Oh, a whole bunch of them to do down here. Okay. Get the edge of that building with a slightly bolder line. Then I'm putting on the pavers a little lighter line, a little thinner line. Oh, duh, I should get that one while I'm right here. And there's one at the top of this window, and there's one at this part of the window. And then, wow, that's wonky. That does not line up with the perspective grid at all. We're going to fix that. I'm going to fix that in the ink. Put that line down where it actually belongs. And then I think I'm going to do the clean my tool off real quick before I make a mess. And I think I'm going to do the vertical lines here because the other ones are kind of running into those. I did not use a perspective grid on this tiny panel. I just kind of fudged it. Okay. And nothing needed down here. as I say while holding a pen in my mouth. So hopefully, the idea too is that hopefully by the time I've gotten all the way down to this panel, the lines in that top panel are dry and I'll be able to go the other direction. That's the theory. It's summertime. It's frequently humid in here, so that feels like it's probably dry. We're probably good there. It's a very dangerous game to be playing, is all I'm saying. So let's see if we can get the next set of lines on there. What set do I want to do next? Let's see. I think next I'm going to do the vertical lines on this one. And I'm trying to be careful too not to drag my ruler down in any of these other panels where the lines are probably still a lot more wet. We're going to do right there. There. Got this doorway and window over here. There we go. Okay. Here. I guess I'll do. We're going to do over here. Hello. Concerned with the humidity. We'll go ahead and do vertical lines again. And here we've got this one. It's going to be a pretty bold line because that's towards the foreground. And window, and do those other. Oops, I forgot to do the wind frame there. I'll have to get those later. It really makes trying to do artwork difficult. And I've got a terrible hippie in that I choose to use air conditioning if I can help it. And I'm just like, no, I don't need to waste all this energy. It's fine. It's not that hot. And then the surf like pudding because it's so humid. I mean, to be fair, it doesn't really get that hot where I live because I'm like, you know, it has been hotter than usual lately because, you know, climate change is real, y'all. I promise you, it's not supposed to be this hot in Maine ever, but it's still not as hot as a lot of it if I can help it. I don't even actually have any air conditioning in my studio anymore, so then I just have to deal with the humidity. Need to have AC just because if you have like different medical conditions, sometimes it at an optimum temperature and lower humidity and everything. My niece actually requires air conditioning as well. She gets really, really sick as one of the things that she deals with. She's sick when she gets overheated. Her classroom at school is the only classroom, back when they had a classroom that they went to, it was the only one with an air conditioning unit in it. So all her classmates are always like, yes, his class, we're actually going to have air conditioning. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. All right, so I went through and did all of that. I'm going to do most of it, and we'll be able to move on to all the fun textures and stuff. Gotta get some of this structure done first, though. It's not quite as thrilling. Get all these little lines for the pavers. Try not to mess up the pattern, which I do on occasion. Ones more like this panel down here where they're smaller, I mess up the pattern a lot. I'll be like, oops, that's not how that's supposed to go. This one, so that first panel, all of the work is done. This will pretty much do it on this one. I think I'll do like one more down on the bottom there. I should be able to sneak that in on this pass though, because it's not anywhere near those lines. There we go. That's all I wanted was that one little line. All right. Here we've got a bunch to do. How is this? Is this wet still? No, it seems fine. Screw it up with the pavers, the patterns and the pavers. I always manage to mess it up when they're kind of far away like this. I feel like I'm already messing this up. It's hard to tell though. They're so squished together with perspective. That should be over here. Oh, I think I need a little more ink. I'm really just kind of, yeah, see, somewhere in here, I've already messed up. Or I did when I was penciling. I don't know which is the correct answer there. Somewhere along the lines, I have already messed up. I mean, granted, no one but me's gonna notice, but I'm gonna notice and it's gonna drive me easy. Going to constantly irritate me when I look at this page. All right, another line of the roof, another big bold line. Come down here and do these ones. There we go. And then on this one, I still have those other ones that I missed that I'll have to go back and get, but I can get those later. Over here, I'm going to go straight across. I think I need a link. And I'm okay if these lines aren't like perfectly getting all the way across, because this, like, I don't want the pattern to really be super distracting or anything. I don't want the lines to be too connected and perfect, because that's not really what a stone pavered area looks like. I don't want it to look like a checkerboard, basically. Okay, so that should be most of the work with tools on there. I will have to go back and fix that, and I'll need the French curve for Fell's swords, but we'll get back to that. We'll loop back around. Not going to worry about it too much right at the moment. So up in this, we're going to start with little dots for the stone texture on these walls. These stone walls take a couple of passes, and first pass is tiny dots, which is kind of meditative. Hopefully not too boring for you guys to watch. I'm amazed, honestly, I'm amazed anybody watches some of these videos. I appreciate those of you who do. I appreciate you so much. You don't even know. Earlier page in this sequence, I had like a really, really big like panel that took up about half the page. It took forever to do the background on, just filling in all these really dark textures because this whole chapter takes place in the dead of night. Go ahead and do the little tiny details of her tiara there. Start doing some of the shading on the stone here. And remember too, these lines, since they're showing this plane that is going in this direction, and I want those lines to follow that form, need to follow the perspective grid. So up here, the horizon line's right here. So these lines are going down toward the horizon line. And the ones below it are going up toward the horizon line. And the doorway and window are just going to be spot blacks. So I just put little X's on there to indicate that those are to be filled in with black later. Turn this a little bit so that I can do these straight up and down parallel lines without like dislocating my wrist. It's a little darker at the bottom to kind of indicate the just general buildup of scuzziness in these old stone walls. Oh, I don't know if you guys can hear that. I have a bird right outside my window. The last time I rearranged my studio, which was about a week ago, now my drafting table is right in front of a window, so I can look right out into the woods, which is pretty cool. And I have the hummingbird feeder right outside this window, so they'll like hover right in front of me, which is really cool. And then I can hear the birds. And I think there's like a barn swallow or something trying to make a nest under the eaves of my studio, because I keep seeing a bird fly like within inches of the window and then disappear going up. So I'm like, okay, somebody's building a nest under the eaves here. Every time I think this bird is going to crash into the window, and then it just swoops straight upward at the last second. Okay, and over here, this area is a little bit more wide open. Oh, the cats are looking for. That's too funny. I have a strictly indoor cat, and we live like right in the middle of the woods, so he's constantly just bopping back and forth between the windows, like looking outside, like, oh, come on, you guys. Please let me go out there and eat all of these creatures. It's like, tough luck, buddy. You are a big, friendly, one-eyed cat. You're not going outside to get eaten by coyotes. Yeah, I just put those couple of like guidelines so that my straight up and down lines don't get all wonky through here. Especially since I'm holding my paper at a weird angle, so it's hard to tell where parallel truly is. Really easy to lose in that situation. You can watch the neighbors do stupid stuff. That's great. I don't have very many neighbors. My direct next door neighbors are my in-laws, and from my kitchen table, I can see them. I can see their house like perfectly. And sometimes I'll be watching early in the morning and be like, what are they doing over there? We also have that very living in the country phenomenon of, it's like, oh, you live on a dead end road, and so you know all your neighbors and you know who drives by your house on a regular basis. So then it's like, ooh, an unfamiliar car. Who's that? What are they doing? Because apparently we're starved for entertainment. Who's that? What are they doing over here? Who cares? Just let people live. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like the way that it looks. Quick question. How do you know your page is proportional if you're drawing on paper that doesn't have margins like common comic paper? Okay. So my live area on my comic is 10 by 15. So normally a standard comic page is looking for a 2:3 ratio. So it's 2 units wide, 3 units tall. So that in this case, 10 by 15, that's 2 units of 5, 3 units of 5 tall, 10 and 15. And then a lot of times like a 6 by 9 is another like standard, but that's just 2 and 3 units of 3. And my paper is actually just completely blank. Like it doesn't have any guidelines on it already. It's just regular 11 by 17 paper because it's way cheaper to buy regular old 11 by 17 than to buy pre-ruled comic paper. So I have to put the guidelines on here myself all the time. And I just mark out a 10 by 15 live area, and from there divide up my little panel borders. And the way that I make sure my panel borders are more or less proportional, partially it's the same thing. You just use math to make sure that if you want like strict thirds, then it's going to be 5 inches, 5 inches, 5 inches with a 1/4 inch gutter between them. But also to make sure that I'm holding true to my vision of it, my thumbnails, I have my own little template that I made for thumbnails where this is a page, just regular 8.5 by 11 page, where I print out these little, I forget what size they are. They're 2 by 3 inch, I think. Yeah, 2 by 3 inch comic pages on here so that when I sketch out what I want that to look like, and then I go, okay, I know that I want these panels. Where's this page? This page is down here. I know that I want this page to end up looking like this. So to make sure that I get those proportions correctly, I can just measure it and go, hey, my first tier is exactly 1 inch, which means my first tier over here is going to be exactly 5 inches. So you can transfer those proportions as long as your thumbnails are already in strict comic proportion, which is why I make sure I have this, like this is a file that I created and I have saved on my computer, and I can just print off like dozens of these, which I do, so that I can keep them with my script. I have a whole system I developed for how I keep my scripts and my thumbnails organized, and maybe I'll do a video on that at some point, like just a regular one, not a live stream, because I end up talking about it a lot, and people usually are really, comic people anyway, are usually interested in how that works. So that is all of that. It's yeah, you're so welcome. I'm happy to answer questions. I love being able to explain to people about the process. This is why I do this. So yeah, it's basically a little bit of very basic math, and well, I guess it's like really basic algebra. And you're able to have your proportions without needing to buy the fancy blue line paper, which is not always great quality either. That was the other reason I stopped buying the blue line paper, is that not only was it more expensive than the regular comic paper, sometimes it felt like weird. Like I think having to run through the printer to get those blue lines on it did something weird to the paper. I didn't like it. But everybody's finicky about what type of paper is their paper. Some paper that I like, other people would be like, oh, that's gross. How can you use that? Some paper that other people swear by, I've tried and I've been like, oh, gross. How can you use that? This is horrible. Yes, I do very much enjoy living in Maine in the middle of nowhere. I have lived in the city. I went to college in Savannah, Georgia, and I lived in the city for several years after I graduated because I had a job. So I was just like, I'll just stay here for who knows how long. It ended up being a while. There were a lot of things I liked about living in the city, but ultimately I did decide I'd rather go back to the country. It's been especially nice lately when it's like, oh, you can't go anywhere. I'm like, okay, but I can still like just go outside. There's no other humans for a very, very long distance from me, so I can still go outside and walk around in the woods. Boston. Someday I'll get to travel again, and then I'll almost certainly pass through Boston, because that's the only way you can leave northern New England. You're not allowed to leave northern New England unless you go through Boston first. It's just how it works. All right, again, I'm kind of getting a little more shadow right up against the building. It just helps the building look like it's actually has a little bit of weight. It's taking up a little bit more space to have a little bit of shadow cast around it. If the lighting situation I have set up in this scene, the big shadow that would be cast off this is on the other side of it. But having just a little bit of shadow kind of close to it, it just kind of helps to give it weight and make it seem like an object that is taking up space, rather than just a couple of plain dumbly meeting. And I have these great big areas of texture I have to fill up, is when I curse myself in life decisions. Tiny little lines down here. All right. I missed that comment earlier from Sophia saying that they're never square either. The lines are all over the place on the pre-rolled stuff. Yeah. I forget which company it was. Jeez, I think it was Strathmore. They had like some comic lined paper and they printed it on they printed the lines on the wrong side of the paper. It was listed as smooth Bristol and they printed the lines on the rough side. And why would you do this? And I actually mentioned it to a Strathmore rep and my friend said he looked like he wanted to punch me. I'm like, but it was wrong. It's like, no, it's not. You're confused. It's supposed to be on that side. I'm like, okay. Okay, yay! Background on that panel is now finally done. Finally filled in all of the gray little lines. All right, so over here, I'm gonna give myself a break from all the repetition and just quickly ink in a little detail of her tiara. It's just one of those tiny little details that it's like, if I tried to do this with I could do it with a brush, but it's just much easier to do with the pen. There we go. I think that's the only kind of thing. That's going to be black. That's going to be black. Go ahead and do these lines that go this way real quick. And I don't really care if they bleed over into this space because, again, that's going to be a spot black. We got to do dots again. Dots. More dots. Yes, I enjoy living in the country. It's pretty nice. Certain things are obviously not super convenient, but it's like when I tell people from more urban or suburban areas, it's like, yeah, I have to drive like 45 minutes to get to Walmart. And they're like, no, you don't. No, really, I do. I have to drive at least 30 minutes. I think the closest McDonald's is 30 minutes away. That gives you an idea of how isolated I am. We do have a Dunkin' Donuts in the grocery store. That's only about 15 minutes from where I live. Oh, cool. Yeah. I love watching other people's process too. I love learning about other people's process. It always gives me some insight, some new ideas. This is what these are for. People who love this stuff. Right, we're gonna do this up here. This little divider on this window. And as with before, I'm going to put in those little guidelines to keep my parallel lines from becoming not very parallel. And again, down at the bottom here, just going to get it a little bit darker along the bottom edge. Which I know looks a lot darker on camera. It's not quite that much darker in person. So I'm trying to be very careful to get all these tiny, odd shaped spaces between these two characters. All right, there's that part. And then we're going to give this, do these pavers real quick. It's just one tiny little, oh, I guess you could see a little bit. No, that would be wall. I didn't figure that part out. That would be wall, and that would be paver. Okay, there's a little gap there I had missed. And another little gap here. There we go. All right. I know I want to do something behind this figure, but I don't know what yet. I haven't made up my mind what I want to do back here yet. So I'll leave that panel for now because I got to think about that. Usually it'll be some kind of just like a gradient effect for when it's just like a reaction panel like this, where it's like it's just a person's face and it's just like focus on them. I'm not sure though. I might just do black in the background, spot black. I haven't decided yet. I might probably finish the background on the rest of the page and then see what it looks like the balance of the page is leading towards there, since I'm not sure what I want to do. So, get those couple of straight lines down here that I missed earlier. Get that real quick. And clean this off. that I do not end up with a gunky mess on my straight edge. Clean out I just dipped my pen in water and I'm just kind of like cleaning all the water and ink gunk out of there. Okay. And we're going to come up here. Oh, I probably could have used a straight edge up there, but that's fine. I can also just kind of fudge that. It's a small enough line. Those are going to be black. This is going to be straight up and down. These are going to be this way to follow the grid. These are small enough. I'm just going to fill them in with my pen real quick. So tiny. Okay. More dots. More dots. 15-year-old internet memes. What kind of weird nib am I using? Yes, it is a Hunt 107. It only looks weird because I'm using a great big. I'm not using the standard. I'm not using the standard plastic handle because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a giant hippie. I hate plastic. I want every piece of plastic in my life replaced with something that's not plastic, as much as is physically possible. So when one of my other handles was getting kind of old and cracked and worn, I upgraded to a nice wooden handle, which this is a Tachikawa. I found it on Jet Pens. It was like, I don't know, $3 or something ridiculous like that. But it's still just a regular Hunt 107, which is very messy at this point. That's also part of why it's so loud. Why it sounds like I'm making a lot more scratchy noises. I promise I'm not ripping my paper to shreds. The wood just acts like a sounding board and makes it make a lot more noise when you're inking, which was weird getting used to. But yep, it's just a Hunt 107. I love those too. The nice, stiff and cheap and readily available. This is pretty much the only nib I use for much of anything. I also use a school nib for lettering, which is bigger and even stiffer, and I've put that one in a wooden handle as well. So, but it's I forget the name of the brand, but it's a school nib is what it's called, which I also found on Jet Pens because that's become my go-to source for a lot of the inking stuff because they tend to have obscure handles and nibs and stuff in stock pretty regularly. All right, we're gonna. Allison got my really old internet humor reference. I actually never played WoW, but my roommates at the time were super duper into WoW, and so I ended up seeing all of this stuff and just kind of like learning it through osmosis. They tried to get me to play once, and I was like, "No, guys, I see what it has done to your lives. I'm good." Yeah, I love just tooling around on Jet Pen's site and being like, "Ooh, what's this? Ooh, what's that? I'm gonna buy this thing and try it out." Okay, so we're doing that lower edge first. And we'll fill in the rest, and that way it gives us that darker lower edge there. Too much wow. Too much wow. One of my roommates, I came home from like, I think I came home from like a club meeting or something. This was while I was in college. He was already out of college. Came home from like a club meeting at like 10 o'clock at night and went to bed. And he was sitting at his computer desk in the living room playing WoW. And I worked super duper early. So I got up at like 4 a.m. to go to work. And he was still sitting there playing WoW. I came home from work at like 3 p.m. and he was still sitting there. And I was like, Devin, how about you go to bed? And he was like, huh, oh yeah, I guess so, huh? I'm like, oh my God, man. This is not healthy. This is not in any way a healthy thing. Let's see, what time are we at? We're at 40. Yeah, most people, thankfully, are not ever that bad. My roommates were pretty bad. They were also just pretty bad, like as roommates in general. So I think it was just a character flaw with them in general. Just all around pretty bad. All right, so I'm going to kind of sketch these characters in because they're very tiny. And again, while I could do them with a brush like I normally do figures, they're tiny enough and far enough away in the background that the thin little lines are just fine for them. I don't really want them popping forward too much because they're way the heck back there. And this panel is serving to shift the focus in the scene from them back over to Thel anyway, so. So I don't really need them to pop forward. Okay, whoops, I didn't do her foot. Let's get your foot in there. So let's see, we're at 50 minutes in. So I'm going to start telling you all the things because I usually keep these videos to just under an hour so that you can go and do other things. I can go and do other things. You know, we don't all have to be trapped here all afternoon. So I'm Amanda Call. I'm working on a page of my webcomic, Age of Night. Age of Night you can find online at ageofnight.com. That's AGEOFNIGHT. And it is up to 23 chapters, almost 24. We're getting there real soon. 23 chapters plus like, you know, in between little like half chapters a couple places. All available for free online. Every Wednesday, I upload a new page to the site. However, even though it is all free and you can read it all whenever you want, you can also support me on Patreon, patreon.com/ageofnight. That way you get more behind the scenes looks at process and other stuff that I'm working on besides this. And you get all the comic pages a week in advance, which is cool. You can also buy copies of the comic on that big store that has all the things, the big store online that has everything you could want. You know the one. You can find it there. You can also find it now on Skirmisher Skirmisher Publishing's website. They are my online publisher. So you can get PDF copies there. You can get ebook copies on the big website, and you can get PDF copies, which are a higher res, and I think actually probably the nicest way to get it digitally, because it's much higher res than online, and even a little bit higher res than the Kindle version. So that's pretty cool. That's on Skirmisher Publishing's website. Let's see. And if you like these videos, then you can subscribe to this channel. Hit the little bell notification button thingy so that it'll tell you when I go live or when I upload edited videos. Because as much as I would like my life to be predictable enough that I had a regular schedule for this, I don't quite. It's usually like a Friday or a Saturday afternoon, but I can't make promises. I cannot make you any promises. I'm sorry. And let's see. You can also find me. Oh, yes. There is a Facebook page for Age of Night. You can go and like that. You'll get updates there as well. You can also follow me on Twitter at Age of Night and on Instagram at AmandaCallArt. I think that's all the things. No upcoming appearances or events anytime soon. Such is life right now. They'll happen again someday. All right, so let's see. We're about 55 minutes in, so I think I'm going to pretty much call it at this point. So yeah, I started this page. I had it all penciled and lettered, and now I've got backgrounds done on 2.5 of these panels. And next week sometime, I'll come back and we will do brush inking on the figures. Thanks everybody who is hanging out and asking questions and commenting. And I will see you guys all next time. Bye.